What's up, guys? Hopefully your day is going well so far. What if it can get darker than dark? Now, that's a strange question, and I'll be sure to elaborate on that throughout the video, but before I get into that, you guys absolutely crushed the like goal in the last video. Like, doubled it. It has over 1,000 likes, so thanks a lot for that. For this video, our goal is going to be 700 likes, so be sure to drop a like. Thanks. But you guys are probably thinking, what the heck am I talking about? This whole darker than dark thing? Well, this has its origins in the Spamton Sweepstakes from a few years ago, and this sweepstakes had a number of interesting URLs and blog posts and links that led to all kinds of interesting places. It was kind of like an ARG, right? And there was actually a lot that we could uncover from these links. Like, we got the weather people characters from Chapter 3 there, we got the cowboy outfits, we got the knocking their socks off attack for the shadow people. Lots of cool stuff. But one of the more interesting things that's not as cut and dry that we saw was Deltarune.com/chair, which sounds innocent at first, but really there's something very interesting going on here, because we get a picture of this chair, a blue chair with a coat hung over it, perhaps? And if we click on the chair, it turns into this garbled mess of black pixels and stuff. It looks like something out of a FNAF minigame. And the audio also shifts. We get this kind of like... because at first there is no audio on the page. After you click on the chair, we get this kind of... I don't know how to explain it. It sounds like someone's walking through a puddle. Very, like, dark, ominous, kind of sloshy sound that plays alongside this chair that gets all corrupted. And if we take the image of the chair and open it in a new tab, we get this buddy here. We get eyes.png. So I'll also be talking about what eyes.png has to do with all this as well, because there's a few possible places that this could go. But the most interesting thing, and the main point of this video, is how the tab of the website changes. So when the chair is in its non-corrupted state, the tab reads, "But what if it could, ... And then after you click on it, it reads, "Get darker than dark." And since darkness and dark worlds and this and that are so integral to Deltarune's story, I mean, obviously that's kind of the whole point of the game, right? I think it's important to analyze what this darker than dark could be. And I have a number of interesting theories that I want to lay out for you guys. So, theory number one is, what if this is referring to what happens to a dark world at nighttime? Because we've never been to a dark world not during the daytime or the late afternoon. Because the Chapter 1 Dark World takes place during the school day, and then ends a bit after school ends, I believe, but it's still bright outside. And that's generally true for Chapter 2 as well. It might end a bit later, because I think we go after school gets out, and then it's still bright outside after we come back. So we never seen a dark world at night. But the main reason why I even bring this up as an option is because of a very interesting and ominous line from Sham. And I believe this is Chapter 2. I'm not entirely sure myself. I'm pretty sure it is, though, because Chapter 2 we're closer to nighttime. And Sham tells us, you don't want to get caught when the sun goes down. They also tell us to go ahead and head home as well, like prior to this. And this is a very interesting and ominous line. They're not particularly smiling the way that they usually do when they say this, so it implies that this is a rather serious thing, and that they're being serious here with what they're trying to say. So what happens when the sun goes down? Well, this could be a reference to just, you know, we should head home before it gets dark because you don't want to worry our parents, or, you know, it's dangerous outside at night in the real world. But I don't think it's possible that Sham is referring to the real world here. And my main reasoning for this is that they have no way of knowing what goes on in the real world, right? Unless they have, or they're using the shadow crystal, which we know shows the real world from the dark world. But even then, there's no reason for us to believe that the shadow crystal shows the outside, or that they have any kind of knowledge of some kind of danger outside, unless that's just them just having some kind of natural understanding of the real world, which is that it's dangerous outside. But this line feels a bit more intentional than just, oh, go home before it gets dark, because you never know what could happen outside, right? This feels like it's something bad is going to happen in the dark world during nighttime in the real world, I guess. Because the dark worlds might have a day-night cycle. The Chapter 2 Dark World seems to have this, like, baseball moon in the background, so it's already night there, I guess. So I think that this means nighttime in the real world will impact the dark world. And the first potential thing here that could be happening is that the dark world kind of glitches out and gets all spooky like the chair does after we click on it. Maybe some of the objects will kind of have that black, corrupted texture to them, for example. And this will be kind of a symbolism that our fun, escapist adventures doing these kind of childhood games can turn dark and be like a warning sign against the characters pursuing this further, right? And this will be super interesting to see because the Chapter 3 Dark World happens at night. So we might be seeing, especially because most of the lore drops in the sweepstakes are about Chapter 3. If this is also about Chapter 3, we can kind of assume that we'll be seeing some kind of interesting twist involving nighttime in Chapter 3. Now, Toby did say that Chapter 3 is going to be pretty silly, so there might not be anything super ominous yet about this, but that's also a potential option going forward, since, once again, the next chapter is going to happen at night. Now, there's this one final thing I wanted to suggest here, which is that the dog criminals in the police station reference some kind of monster that they saw at night. So maybe Sham is talking about this monster in the real world that comes out at night, but that seems to be a bit of a stretch. So I'm leaning towards, if this has to do with it, this is the dark world during the real world nighttime, and the darkness and the objects in the dark world and glitch out like the chair does. Now, my corollary to this theory has to do with image_friend. Now, this ties back to the eyeballs that I mentioned previously. And I bring this up because in the Queen's basement in Chapter 2, on our way to go put the disc in Spamton, we can see these eyeballs and this big smile. And the eyes are the same color, with the yellow on the left and the pink on the right, as eyes.png from the Darker Than Dark website. And since they match, it kind of implies that they're the same. And once again, since this is potentially a Chapter 3 Easter egg, or like a foreshadowing, that it would also follow with the sweepstakes being about Chapter 3, if those eyes were in reference to Chapter 3. The fact that the eyes are yellow and pink is also interesting, because that's the same color as Spamton's eyes. Now, I believe that these eyes are reversed, so I think that the pink is on the left and the yellow is on the right for Spamton. Though I have to fact check that, because I don't necessarily look into Spamton's beautiful eyes as often as I should, probably. But that being said, if Chapter 3 takes place at night, well, not if, since Chapter 3 takes place at night, maybe we'll encounter this entity. What if this is the warning that Sham was giving us? What if this entity, these eyes and this toothy smile that show up in the basement and in the website, are what shows up if it's darker than dark, if it's nighttime in the dark world, for example? So I know there's a lot of other theories about this character, this image_friend. I've seen fan art of it being like Gaster's cat, for example, or some creature in the bunker, which I think is pretty funny. But this could also be an option for that, considering that the eyes are connected to the darker than dark idea. Theory 2 is, what if we made a dark world inside of a dark world? So we know that Birdly tries to do this in end of chapter 2. And he seems pretty convinced that he could. And when Ralsei tries to stop him, he's not like, Birdly, you're stupid, you can't do that, like, it's not possible. He's like, Birdly, don't do this, they're going to destroy the world. So, Ralsei seems to believe that it's possible, and Ralsei knows a lot, obviously. And he cites the roaring as a reason not to do it, which could also just be false. If Ralsei knows more than he's letting on, he could just be lying here, straight up. But the fact that Ralsei, like, genuinely is horrified that Birdly's about to do this implies that it is possible to create a dark fountain in a dark world. So it's possible, but then what would happen, right? It would certainly explain the darker than dark. So if the nighttime darker than dark was what if the dark world happened when it was dark outside, this darker than dark is, it's more like, what if the dark world was inside the dark world? So it's like multiple layers down kind of dark. Also, take a shot each time I say dark in this video. Actually, don't do that, you will die. But my question here is, what would the objects in the dark world turn into in the next dark world? Because we know that physical objects in the real world turn into darkeners. Not all of them, but like a number of them turn into darkeners in the dark world. Also, not even physical objects, but concepts as well, like Spamton being spam emails, for example. So, but there are real objects in the dark world. It's not like Steve from Blue's Clues house where all the objects are alive, like my salt shaker is alive and has a face and whatnot, and a wife and kids. It's like there are objects that aren't alive as well. Like, we eat food down there, we walk on a path, we open doors. Not all of them have faces and sing songs to us, right? So what if those objects turned into objects in the next layer down, right? And what if they kind of had that corrupted black corruption that the blue chair has, for example? What if that blue chair is an object in a dark world that is in a dark world? Or, like, what if that blue chair is inspired by an object in the first dark world, and then in the next dark world becomes that corrupted state, right? So that's my theory, potentially, on the dark world in a dark world. But my other take, that's the most interesting in my opinion, is theory 3, which kind of follows from the dark world inside a dark world, but it means something else. In that, when we open a dark world in a dark world, we go into the code. Now, we know that Toby has opinions on data mining through the code of Undertale, because there's like some audio files in there that are pretty eerie, that are like kind of reminiscent of Gaster and how he talks and kind of sounds associated with it. And one of them is like, yeah, don't look into the code, don't go too far, or else there'll be no more surprises and we'll all be sad, and I won't make a surprise ever again. And we can see that Toby doesn't want people to go too deep and kind of ruin the surprise, ruin the experience. And we also know that Toby, his games involve interactions with media. The themes are often about how people interact with media. So in Undertale, it was about Flowey was a parallel to the player, and how players will try to milk every last drop of content in the game. And they'll do routes over and over and over again without letting the story marinate. Like, the story isn't important to them anymore, it's just getting every experience out of the game, and how that can be very harmful. Instead of letting the authors or the creators' messaging and theming kind of marinate with you, you brush past that and go for the next run, and then the next run, until you can experience everything the game has to offer, right? And then in Deltarune, we already have the obvious setup about escapism and using entertainment to run away from your worries and try to embrace like a childish childhood nostalgia, right? So what if another take here is involving data miners kind of flying too close to the sun? Or at least in this case, it'd be quite the opposite, since we're going darker than dark. But if we open a dark fountain, and it kind of lets us into the code of the game, because I mentioned this in the last video, but if the dark worlds are... So there's a lot of layers here. We playing Deltarune are playing a game. So the dark world is a parallel to us playing the game, because the characters in our game are playing a game through the Dark World. But if they dig too deep into their game, the same way that we can dig into our game's code, it would make sense that they would see some kind of code in the Dark World, and maybe even just the code of the game that we're playing, Deltarune, right? And Ralsei could be lying about the roaring, because my Ralsei theory kind of suggests that he knows Gaster, and Gaster might know the code, right? So what if Ralsei knows that doing this would open the code of the game, but he doesn't want to say that, obviously, so he's like, don't do it, it'll start the roaring. So I could believe him just not telling the truth there. And the most interesting evidence here is that there is a voice in the code saying, can anyone hear me? It's so dark. I hear scratching. Right? So, how did this voice get here? Well, if you believe that this voice is Des, for example, what if she got trapped in a place darker than dark? What if she got put into the code of the game because she went too deep? Like how Toby is trying to warn players and data miners to not look too deep, to just enjoy the game for what it is, to take in the experience, to find out the story for yourself, to see all the surprises and twists and turns, instead of going straight to the code and trying to dig up new information and figure out every little detail how a game works on a meta level. Just enjoy the game that he's made for us. And this creature, potentially Des, being trapped in here in a place darker than dark, could be kind of a commentary, looking negatively, which we already know Toby kind of feels about, on the act of data mining. So that's my favorite theory about what if it could get darker than dark, is this more meta approach that fits in with the parallels and the different layers of games and entertainment that are being laid out for us by Toby in Deltarune. And I'll also go ahead and mention this. Shout out to @Godslaughter for commenting on my previous video about flashback excerpt, saying, because I mentioned this previously in the last video kind of briefly, but this commenter really expanded on the idea and gave me a huge inspiration for this video. So shout out for the great idea, because I wouldn't have had nearly as big of a push to make this video if you had not done so. And also, thanks for 1,000 subscribers. I don't even know how I'm saying this, because I said thanks for 500 on a Wednesday, and we had 1,000 yesterday. So I'll probably be making thanks for 2,000 in a few days from now, because the growth has been incredible, and you guys are to thank for it. I love having a community of people to talk to, engage with, rant about our crazy crackhead theories and stuff. It's been amazing. So if I keep saying thank you every other video, just know that I mean it. I really do mean thank you. Each time I say it, it doesn't mean any more or less than it does mean more, but it means no less than the last time. So yeah, thanks to all you guys. And on that note, I actually just created a Discord today, which is a bit why I was late in posting this video. And I have gotten a number of comments like, hey, you should make a Discord, this and that. So I said, you know, at 1,000, I'll do it. So here you guys go. It's real, it exists. It's called The Fruit Basket. So go ahead and check it out. The link is in the description or on my channel homepage. Hope to see you guys there. And finally, last announcement is I now have a Patreon with multiple tiers of membership, offering a variety of perks, so go ahead and check that out. And my Ko-Fi, which previously only had donations open, now has the same membership perks as Patreon. So some of those perks for various tiers include special access to exclusive Discord channels where I'll be hanging out more often. We also have exclusive content like behind the scenes, some daily life stuff, and my writings that my videos are kind of based off of or inspired by will also be posted there in their revised form for the corresponding tiers. So if you ever feel so generous as to donate or join, go ahead and do that on Patreon or Ko-Fi, and I'll have YouTube up eventually, but they're being a bit of a pain right now, so we'll see about that one later, but it'll have all the same perks and stuff, so don't worry about missing out, because it'll be exactly the same. So yeah, thanks for that as well. And finally, thanks for watching the video. If you made it this far, you must like the video, so why not like the video? Shout out to Rosie Pixels for supporting on Ko-Fi. And with that in mind, I love you guys. Be safe, be smart, don't be stupid, and have a great rest of your day.